glad you're here. This is the audio version of the book Peak, A Resource for Recovery, authored by Faye Anam Abbas. Chapter 4, Ghosting and Shunning. Beginning around 2011, a new concept emerged in the context of online exchanges: ghosting. Ghosting is breaking off a relationship by ceasing all communication and contact with a person without any apparent warning or justification, as well as avoiding or ignoring and refusing to respond to the person's attempts to reach out or communicate. There is now a lot of internet chatter on the effects of ghosting, which appears to be on the rise. Some mental health professionals consider ghosting to be a passive-aggressive form of emotional abuse, a type of silent treatment or stonewalling behavior and emotional cruelty. But we don't really have to wait for additional research on the effects of ghosting. It has already been studied, but under a different name: shunning. What is shunning? As we have seen in previous readings, it is almost always adult children who end the communication with estranged parents rather than the other way around. This is a form of shunning. When most people hear the word shunning, they think of certain agrarian or ethnic religious practices. Alternatively, they think of practices featured in historic literary works such as The Scarlet Letter, where adulterers were required to wear a red A on their foreheads and suffer the scorn of their community. In the Old Testament, the penalty levied against Cain for killing his brother was not capital punishment, but a mark on his forehead that would lead to his shunning. It is a testament to the power of shunning that Cain's response was, "My punishment is greater than I can bear." That's how most people think of it, as a kind of Old Testament practice. Shunning is considered either rare or an artifact of the past, something that happened somewhere else. It is interesting to note that the frequency of the use of the word has dropped consistently since the early 1800s until the last several decades, when it has begun to be used more frequently. The word ghosting has become so common that it is beginning to be included in dictionaries. In spite of perception, shunning is a common practice that many people have suffered or perpetuated, yet it is surprising how little attention has been paid to this ubiquitous form of aggression. To shun is defined as to persistently avoid, ignore, or reject someone or something through antipathy or caution. Shunning usually occurs in response to a failure, real or perceived, on the part of the person being shunned. Breaking contact with a parent with whom an adult child is angry because of their choice to remarry is an act of shunning. Deliberately and habitually refusing to take phone calls, respond to text messages, answer emails, recognize birthdays, or show up on holidays is an act of shunning. While most estranged adults would initially not use that word, it is actually a precise and concise way of describing what they are experiencing. The pain of shunning. Shunning is a form of rejection that gives rise to some of the most painful of human emotions. The same part of the brain that registers the physical pain when you strike your thumb with a hammer also registers the emotional pain of being shunned. While shunning doesn't leave bruises or blackened eyes, the pain is often deeper and lasts longer than a physical injury. Estranged parents often wonder why the rejection by their adult child is so painful. The pain they suffer may be worse than that caused by any other experience in their lives, including childbirth. An article by psychologist Guy Winch, PhD, explains why emotional pain can be so much worse than physical pain. Emotional pain is re-experienced by memories in a way that physical pain is not. Physical pain, like exercise, can help distract us from emotional pain, but not vice versa. Emotional pain can make physical pain even harder to bear. Physical pain garners more empathy from others, than emotional pain. Think of a broken arm in a cast. Finally, emotional pain is triggered by holidays and anniversaries in a way that physical pain is not. All these factors work in combination to make the pain of parental estrangement extremely difficult to bear. Shunning in families may begin with an angry spouse in a divorce, but then expand to include children if they feel impelled to take sides. Estranged parents may be shunned by one adult child, several adult children, or even the entire family. Shunning may include a total severing of communication or reduction of contact to a few tense, obligatory conversations. Either way, the impact can be both immediate and long-term, obvious and subtle. Impacts of shunning. The modern language of ghosting provides a vivid image of the effects of shunning. A ghost is invisible. People go on with their lives as if they don't exist. Ghosts also have no agency in the world, no power to impact others for good. Their existence makes absolutely no difference to anyone or anything. All they have left are memories of when they were actually visible. Ghosted people, including estranged parents, spend time wondering if anyone ever remembers them, misses them, or longs to see them. They consider different ways of ghost-busting the relationship, showing up or taking some action that will force others to see them. In research projects where the reactions of adults interacting in a game are observed, feelings of control, belonging, self-esteem, and meaningful existence are reduced within minutes of being excluded from the game. In just a few minutes of being ignored, an estranged parent can begin to feel badly about themselves and even question whether their life means anything. In response, estranged parents may attempt to change their behavior to gain acceptance, complying, obeying orders, being submissive, mimicking laughter, or criticizing others, anything to stop the pain of being shunned. However, the assault to their own dignity can have multiple long-term consequences, including the obvious loss of self-esteem and depression, but also physiological symptoms such as ulcers, suppression of the immune system, anxiety, psychosis, a loss of feeling valued or having any meaningful existence, which results in increased risk for suicidal thinking, suicidal attempts, and death. At first, estranged parents who suffer from shunning may not realize what is happening to them. They may have a vague sense that something is wrong, but may not be able to name it. They may go through a period of denial where they try to convince themselves that what they are experiencing is normal. Since no parent is without his or her own failures, they may live in the guilt of feeling that they deserve to be shunned. They may go through years of bargaining, hoping to finally be accepted back into the family. They may make no connection between psychological or medical problems they are experiencing and the shunning they are or have experienced. Later, they may decline into a state of resigned bitterness and anger, where they push everyone else away at a time when they need others the most. By engaging in such self-exiling behavior, they simply reenact and expand the sick abandonment they experienced in their families. Whose fault is it? Being shunned or ghosted can happen to any parent. It can happen to parents with criminal records who clearly understand there may be justification for the estrangement. It can also happen to people who, by any reasonable measure, have been model parents. For most of us human beings, we fall somewhere on the spectrum of human fallibility. Research indicates that the majority of parents do not know the reasons for their shunning. The recovery process does not depend upon establishing who is at fault. In fact, blaming is counterproductive in the healing process, since it either wastes energy by focusing on another person over whom you have no control, or by lamenting your own past failures in a way that thwarts future possibilities. If you are stuck on your failures, it might help to ask yourself a few questions. How do you benefit from focusing on your failures? How do those you are in relationship with, who love you and you love, benefit by focusing on your failures? How do the people you are called to serve in the world, work, community, nation, benefit by focusing in your failures? How do your adult children benefit from focusing on your failures? If you are a person of faith, how does focusing on your failures benefit your relationship with God? How does focusing on your failures help you achieve important goals in the future? How do you personally benefit by focusing on your failures? There is only one category of people who benefit by your focusing on your failures: those who have an emotional need for you to hurt. Here's the truth. You are the only one responsible for where you focus your attention, and you are the only one who has the power to take whatever steps are required to move on. While attempting to fix blame is not helpful, understanding how being shunned or ghosted is affecting you is extremely important. Every person is different, and the way that impacts of shunning express themselves in each life will be different. For some persons, shunning may impact their mood with feelings of sadness, fear, guilt, or even anger. Others will find themselves obsessing over the loss with runaway thoughts. Still others may experience physical and medical effects like insomnia, headaches, GI problems, or heart arrhythmias. Finally, some might find that the shunning is affecting their ability to establish and maintain relationships, or that it has become a source of stress in the relationship with their spouse or intimate partner. In addition, the intensity of the impact will vary as well. For some estranged parents, the intensity of the impacts may be quite low, while for others so significant that it is almost debilitating. It is one thing when parental estrangement causes insomnia once or twice a month. It is a totally different degree of intensity when it is occurring every night of the week. Some estranged parents may not fully realize how being shunned is affecting them until they are given permission to talk about it. They may feel that parents should be an inexhaustible supply of physical and emotional resources for their adult children. The impacts and intensity of shunning may not fully hit them until they realize that this omnipotence is an unrealistic expectations for themselves, and it is okay for them to hit bottom. How healing begins. Given all the impacts of shunning, parental estrangement is a serious condition. Left unaddressed, the psychological, social, and even medical impacts can be devastating. Coming to grips with this reality is the first step in healing. In order to take their own healing seriously, they must believe themselves worth saving regardless of the particular details of the estrangement or the nature of their human failures. Sometimes estranged parents make the mistake of thinking they can simply let their adult children know how painful it is to be shunned. They hope, for example, that if they give their adult child this reading, a change will occur in their behavior. Unfortunately, this rarely helps. It is the equivalent of a ghost haunting a house, which typically results in feelings of alienation and disgust, rather than peace and reconciliation. A poem. The Ghost of Estrangement. I have learned to see my children as a ghost must view the living, separated not by distance, but by a veil of disgust. My appearance to them would be a haunting, and their reaction would haunt me as well. My touch is that of a loving gaze toward a photo of long ago, as upon a sleeping toddler. I am possessed of that peculiar sadness that the first sadness is passing away, the beginning of serenity. By Faye Anam Avis. The emotions leading to estrangement are powerful. When adult children are able to be honest, they may be so angry that they want their parent to suffer. As one researcher put it, letting people know how badly it hurts just doesn't get rid of it. Only when estranged parents realize this do they stop waiting for their adult children to change and take the first steps toward recovery. In their recovery process, estranged adults begin to recognize shunning for what it is, a failed attempt of adult children to deal with their own issues of hurt, anger, or fear. The goal is not to blame estranged children or exonerate ourselves as parents, but to find insight and healing through our spiritual source. With encouragement and support, we reclaim our dignity and overcome our tendency to abandon ourselves. By facing squarely our own responsibility for developing lives that are vital and purposeful, we begin to change in the one area where we have control, ourselves. Questions for reflection and discussion. How and when did shunning or ghosting develop in the relationship with your adult child? How much are you focused on your failures from the past and how those may have affected the relationship with your adult children? How much are you focused on their failures? How is being shunned affecting the following areas of your life, and how intense are these impacts? Mood and emotions, thoughts, physical and medical, other relationships. If you are using this book in a group discussion, what did you gain from hearing others speak and from speaking? This is the end of Chapter 4. Thank you for listening. If you found this helpful or think it may help someone else, please feel free to share. On this YouTube channel, if you look below the frame that we are in, you can like and you can subscribe to this channel. You can also click a notification bell that will let you know whenever we upload a new video, and then you can access it quickly. Thank you.